So hello there and welcome back to the second part of my complete guide to making your first game mode in Portal. In the first part of this guide, we worked with the spatial editor and we set up the game mode objectives and spawn points and the combat area for your game mode to work. And in this video, we are going to dive deep into the scripting and write the first script to make this game work. If you haven't watched the first part of this guide and completed the tutorial there, I do encourage you to go back and do that before continuing with this video. We will be using the foundations that we laid in that video to begin this next stage. So having completed that first bit will be very helpful to you. Right, without further ado, we will crack on and get ourselves into the scripting, and I'll go on and explain what we're going to do in this video and how we're going to do it next. Okay, before we begin with this, just let me outline a couple of things that we're going to do. We are going to be working in this video entirely in the script section of the rules editor. Now, I know many of you as beginners will be using the blocks, and that's absolutely fantastic. And if you would prefer me to put out a video that runs through the exact same tutorial but uses the blocks, I would be perfectly happy to do so. But we are trying to explore the new features of Portal at the same time as building this mode. And as the scripting section is such a significant part of this new version of Portal, I thought it might be beneficial for beginners and for those that have written these Portal modes before to explore the scripting language and at least introduce it a little bit to everyone. For those that aren't programmers, if you find all of this just a little bit overwhelming, please don't worry, just follow along and type the instructions as we go. We'll be completing a couple of little challenges along the way. And whilst you won't be learning how to program, because some of this is a little bit too advanced for beginners, as long as you copy exactly what I write, you will end up with a functioning game mode, and we'll talk about mistakes that beginners make along the way as well. As for those that are already expert programmers, I hope that you get something out of this. We won't be using any particularly advanced programming techniques in this particular game mode, and we'll be keeping things simple so that it's accessible to as many people as possible. But I will be releasing a version of this template that includes all the more advanced features later on. So let's dive in. We are going to do this in a couple of stages. We are going to declare the game mode variables at the initial top section, and you can see I've taken our original code and just added some comments into there so that we can work through it. We'll also be working through this initialization section, initializing our capture points, the scores for each team, getting the scoreboard set up and starting our main game loop. And then the most important part of all of this really is we will be creating the scoring system. There are a couple of things that we need to do to get that to work. And then as you can see at the bottom, we've got this main event, which is updating the team scores in the game loop. I will split this up into chapters, so if there's a particular thing you just want to focus on, please do that. And well, let's get going. Let's see where we end up. Okay, so at the end of the first guide, you should have ended up with a script that looked a little bit like this, and I set you a little challenge to initialize the other capture points. So we'll just do that now. This should have been already completed, but we'll show you how easy that is. And this is one of the beauties with the script rather than blocks. Copying and altering things is significantly easier, as is moving things around. So we'll take this first line that's stored capture point A, and all we're going to do is we are going to duplicate that 2 times for the other capture points, and we'll change this to capture point B and that one to capture point C. And hopefully you recognize that these were the object IDs that we had stored in the spatial editor earlier on, and we called A 100, B 101, and capture point C was 102. So that gets the variables for these. Let's store these capture points in their own little variables now. Let's go like that. So we've just duplicated that block of code again, and often some of this is just to do with duplicating code, to be honest. So this was setting up capture point A. Let's do the same. Let's set up capture point B. And while I'm doing this, let's just remind you that you can pause the video at any point if you need to copy some of the code. And one of the difficulties that we have when people follow these guides or follow me in one of my classes, in actual fact, is that a common mistake is to make spelling mistakes. Now you'll notice that if you make spelling mistakes with commands, it will underscore them. Let's take a moment there. We just copy off that. It'll give you a highlight there and tell you, really, I don't know what that is. All right, but on occasion, it doesn't do that. The other good thing about this is you can see that if we just do it that way, it will try and auto-complete it for us. So if we're not sure what we're doing, usually it will give us a little bit of a auto-complete prompt or something like that. So this is C, but we're just going to carry on. So as I say, just pause the video if you need to just check the code, copy it and check that you've copied it exactly. But that was the code you should have ended up with at the end of the last video had you completed a challenge. If you haven't done that, do that now. You don't need these comments at the end. This is just really extra information that we've added. It's got nothing to do with game mode. We can write these in plain English and they just let us know what each one of those things does. And you can see we can include these little comments everywhere. Okay, let's move on to the next part of this script, which is initializing the game scores for each team. So you might assume that the scores for each team would begin or be initialized at 0 every time you started the game mode, and that seems like a reasonable assumption, but we're just going to force the game mode score to be reset to 0 when the game mode started. Let's just be sure that we've initialized everything. So we're going to start off with mod again. Just to mention, if you are working in the blocks or you want to transfer this into blocks, all of the blocks are already inside that mod block. If we just take a moment and have a look, you can see everything comes inside that. But in the script, if we want to use the commands, we have to start with mod. That's just the library that it's included in, and we need to include that in order to access the functions. But all of these functions, by the way, have the same names in the blocks. So if you're familiar with the blocks, you can be familiar with the scripts and vice versa. You just have to remember them off the top of your head and not make any spelling mistakes. Anyway, back to the team scores. Mod, set game mode score. So this is the function that will set the game mode score for a particular team. And then we have to get the team. So mod dot, and we're going to have two teams in this. So we'll get mod dot get team 1, and we're going to set their game mode score to 0, and we'll do the same for team 2. I'm just going to pause for a second and allow you to complete that. So maybe you want to pause the video. You can write the next line, get the, or set the game mode score, I should say, for the other team. Right, let's type that in, mod dot set game mode score. There we go, and then we've got mod again. Let's get the team, mod get team. We need team 2, and let's set that one to 0. Right, okay, so we've initialized the team scores for each team. Let's move on and initialize this scoreboard as well. So in the next video, we'll be diving deeper into the scoreboard and setting that up. It should be a little bit shorter, that video, than these other ones, but because we're going to need to test to see whether this particular mode that we are creating right now, this experience, once we've finished today, works as it should, it would be really beneficial if we could display the score on the scoreboard. So we'll just give you a little bit of an introduction to that. So in order to access the scoreboard, we're going to just set the scoreboard type first. So mod set. And what's really great, to be honest, is in the scripting language and in the blocks, a lot of these commands are very, what's the word? They're sensible. It makes sense. So set scoreboard type. Kind of what you'd expect it to be, isn't it? So set scoreboard type, and then we are going to select the scoreboard type from the list of scoreboards that are available. It's my hope that later on these lists will be expanded, but at the moment you can see we've got custom FFA, custom 2 teams, default FFA not set and off. So in this case we're going to set custom 2 teams because that's our domination mode. Scoreboard, that's the most appropriate version. By the way, whenever you see me typing these where it's scoreboard type, and then I press dot and you get a list, these are a bunch of enums. It doesn't really matter for non-programmers, but if you look in the blocks and you look under lists, and I'm just going to flick over there now, actually, we've got these selection lists, and I'm going to find scoreboard types under here if I can do scoreboard type item. And when I click on the drop down just here, you're going to see that has the same list. So if you're looking for that in the blocks, you will find the set scoreboard type under, now where is it? User interface, I think it is. So we've got set scoreboard type just there, exactly the same command. And then we can use the selection lists, get the scoreboard type item. Where is it? Where is it now? There we go. And we can drop that in there and set that to custom 2 teams. So you can see this is broadly speaking similar to the scripts. I'm going to stay away from the blocks now, but I thought it might be helpful if you want to follow along with blocks. You can just construct them the same way. Right, okay, so we have set the scoreboard type to 2 teams. The next thing is just to set the header in the scoreboard. So a custom 2-team scoreboard consists of 2 columns, and the header is really where you would expect to see the score on the scoreboard in a traditional game. So we can set that to be whatever we want, but actually in this case we are going to just use a number. We're going to set that header to be a number. So we need to set the scoreboard header for both sides of our scoreboard. So let's do that. Mod dot set scoreboard header. Now I'm just set scoreboard header. Just going to scroll down. There we go. Okay. Now in this case, there's going to be 2 sides to this. One is the scoreboard header for team 1. One is the scoreboard header for team 2. I wonder what they're going to do, whether they're going to be able to or capable of giving us the ability to put more than 2 teams in a table across. Maybe not. But let's do this one anyway. Okay, so we are going to do mod dot message. There we go. So we're going to put a message in there. In this case, it is only going to be the number 0. Now, in order to make this function, we are going to have to take advantage of the strings file as well. Okay, so we haven't used the strings file so far. The strings file contains a reference to every single string that we have used in our experience or in our code. So we're going to first of all make this message. The message is just like a collection of strings, text, numbers that we can display. So let's go mod dot string keys dot, and in this case we're going to put score like that. Okay, so this message is made up of the first thing, which is one of those string keys. So we're going to do that in a minute, and then comma, and then we will put 0 for the score. That's the first side of this scoreboard header, and on the other side we're just going to do the same thing again. So can you complete that for me? The left hand side is for team 1 on the left hand side of the scoreboard, and on the right hand side we want for team 2. We're on the other side of the scoreboard. Right, let's do that. Mod dot message, mod dot string keys dot score, and then comma 0, and that is our scoreboard header all set up. And now hopefully when the game starts, although the rest of the scoreboard's not going to work, we should have the value 0 in the header ready for us to go, and we can use that a little bit later on. It's not quite there yet because we've used this mod string keys score. So what does that mean? Well, in a message is made up of a couple of parts. So we've got, I'm just going to use the blocks to show you. So if we go down here, you will see this user interface, and then you're going to see this message block just here. So you can see this is mod.message, and it's made up of multiple parts. If I click on the help function, you can see that a message can be made up of a string like this. So these are the values that we're looking for. And then we can put these little curly braces in like that, and those curly braces will be replaced by whatever values there are in these further blocks just here. So as you can see, this is a nice simple one. We've got the message with the little curly brace was killed, and then in this other box you can see we've got the event player. So the event player value will be placed in these little placeholders, these little curly braces, and this is really helpful. We're just going to exploit this in our script. So if I go back there, you can see we've done the same thing. We've got mod message, we've got this mod string keys dot score that we haven't used yet, and then we've got a value 0. So we're just going to create a new strings file. There we go, we've got our strings file just there. And the way that we create one of these string keys is to first give it a name. So we're going to type score like that. Then we're going to put a colon, and then we're going to put some speech marks, and in the speech marks we'll go what we want to be there for this string key. And what we actually want in this case is just some placeholders. Now I just want you to think about this for a second. If we go back to our script and we use mod.stringKeysScore, actually what's going to get placed there will be that, the little placeholder. Can't do that now because it won't work in the script. That's what's actually going to go there. So this mod message will be just a placeholder that will be filled with the value 0. Hopefully you understand that. If not, don't worry too much. We'll explore this a little bit more later on. Right, let's move on to the next step, which is just now starting the main game loop. And we're getting further into this now. So for the main game loop, we want to repeatedly just loop around, and as we're looping, we want to update the main score, the game score, on a regular basis. Let's write the code for this loop that's going to continue to loop while the game mode is still going. So we're going to do while mod dot, and we're going to get the time remaining in the match. So while get match time remaining is greater than 0. So while there's still time left in this game, we are going to await mod dot wait. So this is the wait function that we have in the blocks, and it just pauses execution at that point. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit more. So we've got the rest of this, and we are going to wait for 1 second on every loop before executing the next set of instructions. Now, every time this loops, we want to basically update the scores for each team based on how many objectives they own. And we also want to update the main scoreboard totals and the players' scores. Not going to deal with that on this one, but what we're going to do here is we're going to put in a placeholder for a function. Now, I've not written this function yet, but rather than keep writing this as one big long line of code, it's going to be better if we split this code off. So I'm going to type update team scores, just like that. Now it's going to give me a red underscore because it doesn't know what that means because we haven't written it yet. Obviously I've thought ahead, and if you're planning out these modes, you'll have to think ahead too. But for the sake of today, all you need to do is type that in, and we'll write that function in a minute. And then we want to go update scoreboard total, and we'll add that there as well, because that's going to update those numbers that we put at the top of the scoreboard, the total score for each team. I'm just going to insert a little comment here because we also need to update the players' scores, but we're not going to deal with that either. But let's put a little prompt in there, update players' scores. So we remember when we get back, and we come back to this, that's where that's going to go. Right, that's the main game loop. All it's going to do, while there's still some time left in the match, wait for 1 second and then update the team scores, update the scoreboard total, and then go back again and obviously update the player scores. Right, let's move on to the most important parts now, and that is the scoring system itself. So basically our scoring system is going to work like this. We're going to calculate how many points or how many capture points a team owns, and then we're going to use that to figure out how often they get a point. So for example, if a team owns 3 points, they'll get 1 point every second. If they own 2 points, they'll get 1 point every 5 seconds. And if they only own 1 point, they will get 1 point every 10 seconds. So we're going to have to keep track of 1, how many points each team has, and also number 2, how much time has passed since they last got assigned a score. All right, so we're going to just start off by initializing those timers that are going to keep track of how much time has passed since they were last given some points. Now, I had placed this comment just here, this initialize timers comment just here, and I did plan, I thought it would be a good idea to put those there, but in actual fact, I'm just going to scroll all the way to the top of the screen, just up here. Can I get to it? There we go. And you can see I've got this declare game mode variables. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare these variables here because we can use this location to store all of our global variables. That's the one that we use throughout the mode. And then it's going to be easier to spot them up at the top. And we might want to do this for some other things when we get onto the scoreboard and keeping track of score for players. So let's initialize the team score timers for each team. So we're going to go let team 1 score timer. And because we haven't even started yet, we'll just set that as 0. So we're going to initialize it. No time's passed yet. Let team 2 score timer equal 0. There you go. We've initialized both of our timers that are going to keep track of how often or when was the last time that a team got given a score. You'll see how that works in a moment. Let's now move on a little bit further. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and let's put in the extra bits. We've got this main bit coming that sets the score for each team. Now, I've obviously thought ahead quite a bit here, and I do have the advantage a little bit of foresight, but I'm going to write a little helper function here that allows us to work out how many seconds it takes per point. And we can use that for each team to ensure we're using the correct number of seconds that team needs to wait to get the points. Hopefully that'll become clear in a moment as well, but the function goes like this. So we're going to go function get seconds per point, and then we will need to know how many points that team has held. So we're going to pass that to this function as a variable, points held, and we'll make that a number. Just make sure I'm spelling this correct. Finger slipped slightly then. And then we're going to put a colon and we're going to put number, and that is what this is going to return. So it's going to be nice and easy in here. It's just underscored because we haven't returned anything yet. But what we're going to say is if the points held, so that's how many points they hold, it gets passed as the variable. If that equals 3, so if they got 3 points held, can we remember how many points how many seconds they have to wait per point? Well, if they got 3, they only have to wait 1 second to get each point. It accumulates every second. Let's do the next one. So else if the points held equals, well, in this case now we're going to go down to 2. And I think you should be able to finish this off now, but if the points held, I should spell that correctly, if the points held is 2, how many seconds do they have to wait? And then we should be able to do the final one at the bottom. So pause this video for a moment and just complete this function that will get the number of seconds they have to wait for the number of points that they have. I'm going to complete this function now. So if they have 2 points, they have to wait 5 seconds per point. And then finally, else if they hold 1 point, points held equals 1, then they have to wait, 10 seconds per point. Now finally, if it's not any of those, we just put 0 because no scoring occurs if they don't hold any points. Right, we're now finally on to the main event, which is the update team scores. So this is the important one. This is the one that's going to do all of the calculations for us. This is the one that's going to work out the score and make sure the team game mode score is kept up to date. It's quite a long function. Just pause, just double check everything that you've got so far, make sure that we're ready and that there are no errors apart from these 2 lines here. It might be worth at this point, I haven't mentioned it before, but it might be worth at this point just making sure that we have saved our progression. As we do that, it will tell us if there are any script errors, and you can see there are actually some script errors, but you can see that these seem to be related to those functions that we haven't completed yet. So I think we're all in a good place now to begin finishing this off. Okay, so let's write this function to update the team scores. So function update team scores. And once we've done this first little placeholder here, you can see that that red underscore from there disappears. That's because we've started writing this function. So the first thing that we need to do is work out how many capture points each team has. So we're going to declare a variable again to hold that inside this function. Let team1 points held. We'll make that equal 0 because we haven't calculated it yet. And we'll do the same for team 2. Team 2 points held equals 0. Okay, so let's calculate how many points each team holds. And to do that, we're going to have to find out the owner of each point. So let's go let capture point owner. Spell it right. Capture point owner for A. Let's have that equal mod dot get current owner team. So that function gets the owner of a capture point team, and then we just need to get the capture point that we want to get the owner of. So mod dot get capture point. And in there, if we want the capture point, we just need to remember what the capture point number was, the ID was, and it was 100. So let capture point owner A equal get the current owner's team for capture point 100. Right, can you just finish those off for B and C, please? So you must remember that we had different IDs for the other objectives. It should only take you a minute. Pause the video if you need to and complete the next couple of lines. And I'm going to carry on now and complete the rest for you. I'm going to be really very lazy, and I suspect some of you may have been as well, but we know it's the same line, so we are just going to copy and paste it, but we'll change that one to B, that one to C, and that ID, that object ID for B capture point was 101, and for C capture point it was 102. Okay, so now we know the owners of each of those capture points. We've got to calculate or add up how many points each team holds. So we're going to run through each capture point owner, and we're going to check to see if it is the team 1 or the team 2. So to do that, if mod dot equals, and we're going to use equals because we're going to use the internal comparer of the engine to do this, because we're dealing with teams, not some value that TypeScript understands. So if mod equals, then we're going to get the capture point owner. Look, it's nicely filled it in for us. So if that owner A, so that team, but if it equals mod dot get team 1, that will just about do it there. Let's just check. It seems we made a mistake here. Let's have a look. One bracket opened. I think we need another bracket on the end. I think that's the problem. There we go. So if the team that owns capture point A, which we got from here, if that's the same as get team 1, if those two are the same, then we want to add on to team 1 points held. I don't like it being back there. Let's make sure it's indented. Add on to team 1 points held. Let's add 1 onto that particular value. That's excellent. Right, okay, I've got a little bit of a longer challenge for you. There are a number of combinations here that we just need to check to calculate how many points each team holds. I'd like you to write the next set of if statements here to, to calculate the number of points held. Let's see how you get on with that. Pause the video, maybe just give this a go. If you get stuck, don't worry, and I'm going to type out the answer for you in a moment. Okay, I'm going to continue now. So we're going to say else if mod dot equals capture point owner A, comma mod dot get team, and in this case we want team 2. It's team 2 that owns it. Team 2 points held plus plus. So let's add 1 onto that. So we're just going to repeat that for the other capture points. Once again, I'm going to get a little bit lazy and I'm just going to copy this block of code because effectively it's the same thing. We're going to type out another 2 times. Only now we're going to check capture point B, these two, and we are going to check capture point C for these two. Just going to make sure that's indented correctly. I'm not a big fan when it doesn't look tidy and neat, because it's very helpful for organization. So we're nearly finished with this function. We've just got to finish off by performing the calculation and updating the scores. So first things first, we are going to increment those score timers that we did earlier on, because we're going to add a second on. Every time we run this update team scores function, we need to update these timers. So I'm just going to go team 1 score timer. Let's add 1 onto that. And then we are also going to go with team 2 score timer. There it is. And we are going to add 1 onto that as well. So we just incremented the timers. We could put a comment in there, couldn't we, I suppose, but I'm just going to move on, I think, a little bit. So next we need to work out how many seconds it takes for the team to get a point, and then we can do the final calculation. So we'll do, let's make this a constant for a change. Team 1 rate, so that's the amount of seconds they have to wait per point. And we'll get that from our helper function that we did earlier on. So get seconds per point, and then we're going to say how many points this team holds. So team 1 point held. Quite complicated, that, I think, but for some of you that should be easy enough. Just complete the second line now. So we want the rate at which team 1 gets seconds. We're going to call the function get seconds per point, which we just made up here, and we're going to pass the number of points that team holds. Let's do the same for the second one. So it should be team 2 rate equals get seconds per point, and let's say what team 2 points held is. Let's send that. So now we know what rate each team gets points at. How many seconds do they have to wait per point? So now we're going to award points to each team if the timer, their score timer, has been exceeded. If the threshold for their timer has been exceeded, we've gone over it. So this one's quite a complicated one. Okay, so we're going to take a time over this one. If you need any time to copy, or you just want things to go a little bit slower, of course, again, just pause the video. But if team 1 score timer, so that's the timer for team 1, if that is greater than or equal to the rate at which they get a score, make sure that this is the right variable. So if the team 1 score timer that's counting up is greater than or equal to the rate at which they get points, and the team 1 rate was greater than 0. So that just stops them getting any points assigned if the number of seconds per point was 0. We could have put like number of point held is greater than 0 as well. It's the same kind of thing, but that's what we're doing. We don't want to assign points if they shouldn't be getting them. So if the timer by which they should get a score is past the rate, and the rate is greater than 0, then we can award some points. So we're going to reset the timer again. Got to do that, haven't we? Team 1 score timer equals 0, because we're going to assign points and reset that timer so it can start counting up all over again. And now we are going to need to add 1 onto the current score of this team. Now we'd end up with quite a long line if we tried to do all of this in one big long line. We could be quite a long piece of code, but instead I'm going to break it up into little sections. So let's get the score, or the current score of this team. Const current score equals mod dot get game mode score, and let's get the game mode score for get team 1. Okay, and let's just have a look. Forgot to put mod at the beginning, didn't I? mod.getTeam. It's easy to make those mistakes, isn't it, as you're working your way through. So then we're going to make a new score, so const new score, and we'll just add 1 onto the current score plus 1. And then we're going to reset the game mode score to be that new value. So what their old score was plus 1. So mod dot set game mode score. And we need to set the game mode score for mod dot team 1. And we are going to set their new score to be, well, the new score we just calculated. Get team. There you go. You don't make mistakes like that when you're using the blocks, but I do much prefer the scripts. It does give you a lot more speed once you get going, but obviously it's quite easy to make these tiny little errors. Right, okay, that should calculate the score for team 1. We're getting close to our final challenge of being able to test this completely. We haven't tested it so far, but hopefully everything's okay. We will just pause for a moment and get you to write out the second kind of set of blocks that calculate the score in the same way, but for team 2. Once you've done that, that brings this function to a close, and we will have a working scoring system. Okay, I'm just going to add that function again. And once again, as always, I'm going to be a little bit lazy and I'm just going to copy the function above because broadly speaking, this is the same. Now be careful when you're doing this because it's very easy to miss one of these variables and end up using the same one from before. So we must make sure we change them all. So it is team 2 score timer. If that's greater than or equal to team 2 rate, and the team 2 rate is greater than 0, then we're going to reset the team 2 score timer, and we've got const current score, get game mode score, mod get team. Well, this is for team 2, and we get the new score, add it on, and then we're going to set the game mode score for team 2 to be the new score, and that just about does it. And that's just spotted a little missing semicolon. You might have spotted that as I work my way through. But I think that that is our function complete. I'll just hold it there for a second, just so that you can get a good look at each part of it. Maybe pause, double check, make sure you have no syntax errors. So that's errors in your code and spelling, etc. And then we will be ready to just polish this off and finish it by getting the scoreboard to update. So earlier on we were getting an error just up here, weren't we, where we had this update scoreboard total because we still haven't written that function. And we're going to write that now. And this is the final small block of code we need to get all of this working together. So function, we need to call it update scoreboard total. And when we do that, obviously that is going to disappear, is that error. And we just need to change the header. We'd already set it once before we set it to 0, so effectively we are writing the same block of code, but we are just now using the current game mode score rather than just setting it to 0. And you can see at the top just there, that was the line of code that we used originally to set the scoreboard header for team 1 to 0 and for team 2 to 0. So here we are going to set the score for team 1 to be whatever their current game mode score is, and the same for team 2. So why don't you have a go at that? Why don't you write that one line of code to set the scoreboard header for those teams? Then I'm going to write it, and then we're going to go into the game mode and we're going to test it and have a little bit of a chat about what we've done, because we've done quite a lot. Yeah, I'm going to start typing this out. I'm going to type it by hand rather than copying above. I'm not going to be lazy this time. Although it's not really lazy, is it? It's being productive, I suppose. So set scoreboard header. Why do we need to type lots out when we can just use what we've already done? But mod dot message, and then inside the message that goes at the top. So this is the string value. Mod dot string keys. It's a bit bad news if I made a mistake now, wouldn't it? Mod string keys score. So that's a little placeholder, little brackets, And what we're going to replace that with, well, we are going to do mod.get game mode score, and we actually just used this earlier on, so I wonder whether any of you kind of spotted that. And we're going to get the game mode score for mod.get team, and we're going to get the score for team 1. Now I just need to make sure that I'm in the right place here. It is there, I think, that I want to put my comma, and we need to just repeat the same thing for team 2. So mod.create a message, use the string mod.string keys. We'll use the score placeholder, and then we are going to, in there, say mod.get game mode. See, even like this, it's a long line of code, isn't it? Mod game mode score. Then we are going to open that and mod.get team 2. Now I can see that there is almost certainly an error in this line. I've got a feeling that I put too many brackets in there, or there's a comma there that I've missed, but let's have a look. So this is the bracket that opens the scoreboard header. And often when you're looking for mistakes in your code, it's quite difficult. There's lots of brackets to include, and sometimes you just get a little bit carried away. But let's have a look. We've got this is the header for the first team. So we've got mod.message. We're opening the message there. That is the string key that we want, and that is the score. And we're going to close that there. And I think the issue looks like potentially, let's get game mode score team 1. It looks like we haven't closed this message block there. There you go, that's it, I found it. So it's quite difficult. Maybe I'll just leave that for a moment. It looks like we've got an extra bracket on the end there as well. Oh, it's actually giving me a clue. Look, it's saying it expects that. I think I put an extra bracket on there. I put a comma in the wrong place. It is very easy to make these mistakes. You've just got to be a little bit cautious maybe and work your way through. For beginners, it's quite difficult. So check you have the correct number of opening and closed brackets there. There are ways of writing this that are a little bit easier to read, but they involve some additional things which I didn't necessarily want to do here, and I really wanted to get down to it. We could have got the game mode score first, for example. So we could have gone const score equals mod.get game mode score. Now I'm in for it now, aren't I? I might as well just carry this on. And this is going to make that line above a little bit easier to read. There we go. So we're just going to get the game mode score. Let's make that score 1. And let's do the same for score 2. So this will be team 2 score. Let's go there. And using variables in this way is a good idea, actually. It just shortens those lines and makes the logic a little bit clearer. So now we don't have to do all of that. We can just put in there score 1. That makes it a little bit easier to read, doesn't it? And instead of doing this whole mod game mode score for team 2, we can just put score 2. And that does effectively the same job, but makes it a little bit easier to read. Right. I think that's it. Now we should be ready to test, hopefully. First thing to check is when we save it, does it save? And do we get any errors? Nope, we're all clear. We don't get any errors. So that is our code complete. You can see we've written quite a bit of code there. But let's see, we've got a working game mode. And I will come back in a moment with the game running, and we will force of habit. We'll just test it, see whether it works. And I'll talk about the next stage then. So here we are back in the game, and you can see that the capture points are all enabled correctly and showing on the map. Just going to run over to capture point A. Scoreboard's functioning fine with zeros in the header. We're just going to capture this capture point above us, make sure that's all functioning correctly. Now we are aware that there is a bug, or seems to be a bug, in the setting of the capture time and the neutralization time. I'll cover that briefly in my next video, and we'll just fix that because this is taking longer than it should do according to the capture point time that we've set. But that's not a problem. We can sort that out as long as everything else works. And you can see the capture point has been taken, and the score in the header at the top left has now gone up to 1. whereas the score on the right stays at 0. That's all looking good. We are functioning. We'll just hang around. Yep, there you go. We saw it tick up on the scoreboard. Let's go and take another objective. See, let's check this one is working. Would be better if they were getting taken a little bit quicker, but again, just for the purposes of this video, we are all working. So while we're just running this check and we're working through it, let me just remind you that the next part of this video will be running through setting up the scoreboard. I'm going to run through a couple of bugs that I've just discovered in this kind of setup, you know, the ones with the catch point timer and the neutralization timer. It's not a big deal, and we'll maybe look at how to just make the game mode a little bit more flexible as well in future. Yep, there we go. We can see the scoreboard ticking up nicely. Let's take one more objective, make sure that that is clear. If this has been useful to you, I know it's been heavy coding. I've tried to keep it simple. Of course, I am going to make sure that all of the code is made available. I have a full template that's a little bit more powerful than this one we've been building together. But I do think there's a lot of value in writing the code yourself, even if you don't necessarily understand it all at this point. You can get a little bit of a better grip on what it is that you are doing. And of course, if there's enough demand for it, I will do exactly the same video, but use the blocks instead. Quite enjoyed making this game mode. Let's run this through to the end. I just realized that what we didn't do was we didn't change the target game score for the mode, so it's likely to end probably around 100 kills, I think, something like that it's set to. So we'll just let this run out and see if it ends when the timer is finished. If you have enjoyed this video, if you've liked it, please do let people know about the guide that I'm doing. It takes an awful lot of time to put all these together. Not only do we have to learn how the Portal editor and the scripts work themselves, we're working through a lot of bugs at the moment as well, trying to figure things out. So every single little comment and like and share really does help out the channel. I think we're nearly there now. Let's have a look where we're up to with the score. It can't be that far off. I think we're just going to go and take this. Let's take this. Yeah, the AI aren't doing a particularly great job here, are they? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Another AI. And another AI. There we go. And down again. Typical. Like super sharp shooters. These AI at the moment, I think. You can see on the objectives map that all of the objectives are shown there. It'd be nice if they fixed the deploy camera before next time. But there you go. We have finished victory. And yeah, I was right. We're just waiting for 100 kills. We'll fix that in the next session, I think. Right, that's all for now. Really appreciate you taking the time to follow this. I hope it was useful. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.